behind the fence. Every school has a fence, but sometimes the real protection stands on the other side. He was always there before the sun, wrapped in a faded army blanket, propped up against a chain-link fence. At the very back of Cedar Creek Elementary, the staff never learned his name. The children didn't dare ask, but they saw him every morning. The man who didn't move, the man with the silent eyes, the man whose silhouette became part of the school's edge, just like the trees, just like the rusted bike rack. Some kids were scared of him. Some waved. Some just accepted him, as if every schoolyard came with its own ghost. He never spoke, not even when the janitor yelled at him, not even when a security officer threatened to call someone, not even when it rained, and the water pooled under the chain-link fence, soaking the edge of his sleeping mat. He stayed, every day, in the same position, near the dumpster, wrapped in stillness, like armor. But what nobody knew was that his eyes never stopped moving. He saw everything. Who delivered the bread? Which kid skipped lunch? What truck arrived late? What label was always crooked? His name once had been Thomas Carrick, Staff Sergeant, Biohazard Containment Unit, Joint Task Force 814. He'd served 19 years, most of it classified. Now he slept beside an elementary school kitchen, and every morning, as the delivery trucks rolled in, his mind began running diagnostics, not out of habit, out of instinct, because some soldiers never stop watching, even after the war ends, even after the country forgets them, especially then. March 3rd, he noticed the pallets before the driver even stepped out. The truck was unmarked. The delivery men were different, younger, no gloves, wrong boots. The boxes weren't stacked like usual. No alignment tape. One label, pale yellow, had a series code printed in courier font. Courier. He hadn't seen that in years, except once, when training for biological simulation deployments. The code on the label? MK CR4-11. He froze. His spine didn't tense. His breathing didn't change. But in his mind, he was back in that tent, in Fort Benning, watching an instructor show slides of fake bacterial agents. MK CR4-11 was a test code, a decoy marker used only in internal drills to flag packaging procedures that failed integrity standards, meaning this code should never appear on anything in the real world unless someone was recycling old material, or worse, hiding something. The school kitchen accepted the shipment, signed it, placed it in cold storage, but they never looked at the label. Why would they? It was yogurt, pre-packed, factory sealed. Everything seemed fine, but Thomas knew something was off, and he had 12 hours before it was served to 400 children. That night, after the janitor locked up, Thomas stood, stretched, quietly walked to the fence's edge, pulled a piece of wire, slid beneath the chain link. No sound. He moved like a breath of wind. Inside the schoolyard, he crossed a lot in darkness. He knew the blind spots. He'd watched them for months. No motion lights behind the dumpsters. No alarms on the side door near the cafeteria. No cameras in the dry storage hall. He entered through the vent shaft. No lock, just pressure. His palm still knew how to slide steel without waking it. In the kitchen, he didn't touch the food. He didn't need to. He opened the inventory clipboard, flipped to the latest page. Signed, De Martinez, under received goods. 3 crates, dairy product S4. MK CR4-11. He took a pen, crossed it out. Signed below. Rejected. Incorrect labeling, return shipment. Signature, M. Solis, vendor safety compliance. He placed the clipboard back, closed the freezer door, and disappeared. The next morning, the driver came to collect the crates. There was confusion, a phone call, but no real resistance. The crates left. No yogurt was served. No questions were asked. And the man at the fence? Gone. The children looked for him that morning. So were even Sad, the one who used to wave. Asked his teacher where the blanket man went. The teacher said, "He probably moved on." But she was wrong. He hadn't moved on. He had finished. Label that shouldn't exist. Some things are meant to stay inside seal files. But when the seal breaks, so does the illusion that no one remembers. The moment Thomas Carrick saw the label, MKCR4-11, something in his breathing slowed. He didn't panic, didn't even blink, but in his head, the clock began to rewind. Flashback, 2009, Fort Benning, Georgia. The training tent was cold. Metal chairs arranged in 2 silent rows. 12 soldiers. 1 screen. The instructor, Lieutenant Colonel Myers. Pacing like the projector light didn't matter, because it wasn't the slides that taught you fear. It was the codes. MKCR4 series are ghost tags. They should never show up outside a containment simulation. If you see these on any live shipment, one of 2 things happen. Someone used recycled shell packaging. Or, he paused here, always did, someone's running a live op under protection of redacted protocol. That means no report, no help, just you and whatever's inside that box. Back then, Carrick had taken notes. He wasn't the kind who just nodded. He drew the codes, memorized the fonts, even noticed that courier was used because it mimicked outdated, low-risk packaging. They wanted it to look harmless. That stuck with him. Always. 2 months later, during Exercise Willow, his unit received a mislabeled pallet. Destination, medical simulation. Carrick approached the crate. He'd already noticed the stacking was off. The seals weren't flushed. Then he saw the label. MKCR4-11. Courier, light gray. Faint diagonal smudge near the barcode. He flagged it, filed a cautionary note, told the logistics NCO. Response? It's just a mock load. You're overthinking. 4 days later, the civilian driver who helped unload it collapsed, neurological tremors, unexplained fever. Reports said heat exhaustion. Carrick knew better. They all knew better. But the paperwork never reflected what the skin knew. And in the military, if it's not on paper, it never happened. Back to present San Diego, March 3rd, a school, crate stacked outside a cafeteria. Label clean, sealed tight, but that same smudge. Courier font, code MKCR4-11. It was back, and it had no reason to be. Carrick sat quietly behind the fence, watching the sun touch the concrete, watching the driver's hands. How he didn't wear gloves, didn't check anything. The staff signed, smiled, moved the crates inside. No idea what they were holding, no idea what he was remembering. He hadn't spoken about Fort Benning in years, hadn't said Willow since the night. His security clearance was halved, with no explanation. All he had now was his memory and a code that should have never returned. That night, after the last janitor left, he stepped under the fence like it was muscle memory. Everything moved quietly. The back storage light didn't trigger. He knew where the sensor line ended. The freezer had no door alarm. He had tested that 3 months ago with a carton of expired milk. The clipboard was still there, like it always was. But this time, he didn't just reject the shipment. He left something else. A copy of the Fort Benning Warning Bulletin, folded under the clipboard. No heading, no stamp, just 3 lines. MKCR4-11 was not clear for civilian logistics. If you receive this product, contact Red Level Compliance. Or don't, but don't serve it. He didn't sign his name. He just signed M. Solis, an alias he once used for mock evaluation exercises. Fitting, because this was a mock rescue for real lives. He left no trace, but he left the building lighter, not because he felt relief, because he felt clarity. The system hadn't changed. The codes had just moved targets from simulations in bases to children's cafeterias. And the war had never stopped. It had just learned to look harmless. The sound of nothing happening. Sometimes the most dangerous days are the ones where everything seems fine. The children laughed that morning. The weather was warm. No fog. No late buses. Teachers smiled, hands wrapped around coffee cups. The morning routine played like a well-rehearsed script. In the kitchen, Lena Morales sorted the clipboard logs, delivery records, order checks, freezer temps. She'd done it every week for 5 years. Quiet, efficient, underpaid, unnoticed, just the way she liked it. But that morning, something was different. At the bottom of the delivery sheet, for March 3rd, a note she didn't remember signing. Rejected, incorrect labeling, return shipment. Signature, M. Solis. Lena frowned. She knew every vendor, every name, and she definitely hadn't written that. She flipped the clipboard, taped beneath, a folded paper. Worn, typed on real paper, not printer stock. She peeled it off, unfolded it. 3 sentences. MK, CR4-11 was not clear for civilian logistics. If you receive this product, contact Red Level Compliance. Or don't, but don't serve it. No name, no logo, but her breath caught at that code. MK, CR4-11. She had seen that before. Not at school, at her cousin's base in Georgia. Back in 2010, he brought home some training slides. By mistake, Lena had been helping him study for promotion exams. The slides had lists, code prefixes. She remembered that one because he'd said, if this ever shows up outside of a drill, someone F*** ***** ed up. She thought it was a joke. Now her hand trembled. She scanned the rest of the clipboard. The dairy shipment, gone. Picked up, returned. She hadn't even noticed because someone else had signed off. She walked to the back freezer, checked the logs. There it was. Removed. Vendor correction. Handled 3:44 a.m. No explanation. No CCTV in that hallway. No signature from anyone on her team. And the door had been locked from the inside. She stepped outside. The sun had risen just enough to cast long shadows against the fence. She looked to the far end of the schoolyard. Empty. The place where he used to sit was just concrete and dust. No blanket, no figure, no eyes watching, just silence. Back inside, Lena sat at the staff table, the paper still in her hand. She looked around, teachers joking, kids in the hallway. Nothing seemed off, but she couldn't shake the cold in her spine. This note, it didn't come from a prank. It came from someone who knew what it meant for a single label to be wrong. That afternoon, she took the paper and drove to her cousin's old base. It was closed now, private property, but the security guard at the gate looked ex-military. She showed him the note. He read it, said nothing, but the way he folded it told her everything. Where did you find this? At the school. You didn't serve the shipment? No, someone else stopped it. Then you should forget it. She didn't argue, didn't press, just drove away. But she didn't throw the note away. She kept it, slid it between the pages of a recipe book, because something in her gut told her this wouldn't be the last time. Someone tried to test quiet places with hidden threats, and next time, maybe there wouldn't be a man behind the fence. The ones who keep records. Not all ghosts haunt corridors. Some of them haunt login screens. He wasn't supposed to be online that day. Martin Greaves, retired Level 4 data analyst, had been removed from the Red Tier Systems grid in 2019. But old habits don't shut down. With clearance, they just go dormant, like old landmines, waiting for pressure. And that pressure came in the form of a single flagged input. Credential override detected, alias M. Solis. Location tagged, Southern District / Food Distribution Access Layer. Greaves blinked. That alias hadn't been used since a training leak in Fort Benning. And even then, it had only appeared once, in a simulation, filed under low-threat behavioral disruption training. Now it was live. He leaned back in his chair, rubbed his temples, opened a terminal window, typed, search index log m.solis, return all instances, filter, post 2015 activations. Only one result came back, dated 2 nights prior. IP location scrambled. Entry window, 3:42 a.m. to 4:01 a.m. System accessed. Food safety compliance, Tier B. What bothered him wasn't the breach. It was what came after. Shipment rejected. Reason, improper label, code, MKCR4-11. His hand stopped moving. That code, it hadn't been used in operational memory since 2009 because after the Willow incident, all CR4 variants were sealed under Black Flag classification. They weren't even supposed to exist as digital templates anymore. And yet, here it was, filed by a ghost. He activated a private sandbox viewer, opened a red tier mirror protocol he hadn't touched in 4 years. One screen, no access to the net, just old reflection logs. And inside one of them, a long-buried access archive from an old clearance request. User, Carrick, Thomas/SFC/JTF 814. Role, Biohazard Containment /flag retired. Evaluation status, non-reinstatable. Alias usage, M. Solis, mock compliance sign-off /drill phase. Martin sat very still. It all came together now. Someone from Willow was still out there, still watching, still rejecting what others accepted. And worse, the system had no idea. It had just been overridden. From the outside, he stood, walked to a lock cabinet. Inside, an old drive, government issued, never networked. He plugged it in, set it to record, cloned the access instance. He didn't know who else to tell. He didn't trust the current handlers. Too many had been promoted for their ability to let things die quietly. But he remembered Fort Benning. He remembered the way the code CR4-11 got dismissed until someone collapsed. Greaves opened a blank email. No subject, no sender name. He typed, "You weren't supposed to wake up, but I'm glad you did. If this is Carrick, the code is still flagged. You were right to stop it, but now they'll trace it. I'll hold the log until I hear more." He paused, typed one more line. "Thank you for staying alive." He didn't hit send, just saved it for later, in case. This ghost knocked again. Letters never sent. Some letters are never meant to be sent. They're left behind, because ghosts don't write for attention. They write for the right eyes. The envelope was unmarked. No stamp, no return address, no name, just one word written in thick black ink. Morales. It was resting on the staff mail table, tucked between the cafeteria and menu printout, and a broken pen. Nobody seemed to notice. Nobody claimed it. But as soon as Lena Morales saw it, her breath caught. She didn't know why. She hadn't expected anything. She hadn't told anyone. And yet, that envelope felt heavier than its weight. She slid it into her coat pocket and walked past the chattering teachers, the students still wiping sleep from their eyes, the smell of cinnamon rolls rising from the kitchen. She didn't open it right away. Not in the building. Not with people around. She waited until she was alone, in the small break room, door closed, coffee in hand. She sat, took a breath, and tore it open. Inside was no note, just a photograph, faded, glossy, from a different time. It showed a military training room, metal chairs, projection screen, low lighting. At the front, a young man taking notes, barely visible name patch. Vance! Lena froze. She had heard that name before, but her eyes weren't on him. They were on the man standing beside the screen. Half lit, arms behind his back, gaze turned slightly away. A man with tired shoulders and a perfectly straight spine. A man in full uniform. SFC, Carrick, T, her throat closed. The man behind the fence. The one who had sat in silence. Outside her school. For months. Watching. Waiting. Protecting. She turned the photo over. Scrawled in pencil. Some ghost return. Some ghost never left. M. She read it 3 times. M. Was it from Carrick? From someone else who knew him? From whoever was watching her now? She didn't know, but she knew one thing. This wasn't random. That afternoon, after dismissal, she stayed late. The kitchen was quiet. Steam slowly drifted from an empty kettle. She went to the old records cabinet, pulled out the vendor logbook, flipped to March 3rd. There was again, shipment rejected, signature, M. Solis, a name she never wrote, a rejection she never made. But she had seen the aftermath, a vanished delivery, a note that warned her, a memory from Fort Benning she thought long forgotten. She placed the photo inside the logbook, folded in plastic, labeled the sleeve, do not discard, archive. Then she took out her phone, searched her old email, and there it was, a chain from 2011 from her cousin Anthony, military training slides he'd forwarded for help before an exam. One of the images, a warning label, MK CR4-11, do not appear on live material. Red alert if seen outside a simulation. Her heart beat faster. It was real. It had always been real. And it had found its way to her school, to her kitchen, to her hands. Later that night, at home, she took the photo back out, turned it over, traced the writing with her thumb. She looked at Carrick's half-shadowed face and whispered aloud, "You didn't ask for thanks, but I see you now." She placed the photo in a recipe book titled Essentials, not because it belonged there, but because she would remember to look there if she ever needed to explain this to someone else, someone who might not believe that a man with no name, no voice, no home, had once saved 400 children with a glance at a sticker and vanished before anyone could ask why. Dead names and live wires. Not every vanishing is a mystery. Some are just instructions carried out by people trained to be forgotten. The truck wasn't special. White cab, no logo, no plates, just like the dozen others that passed through the interstate that night. Except this one carried something different, not in its trailer, but in its route ID, a route tag CR4 batch extension, and that, in an older version of the red tier system, meant only one thing: simulated biological handling, training purposes only, never to be used in live transport. Yet here it was, rolling past Checkpoint 9, with an empty manifest, a muted GPS beacon, and a destination that didn't match any listed vendor. Nobody saw it arrive. Nobody signed for it, but someone flagged it. Round pushpin flag point, 2:36 a.m., mile marker 242, southbound. The truck veered slightly right, slowed to 25 miles per hour, entered an unpaved service road, used in the 80s for military overflow traffic. Camera footage cut out for 4 minutes. When it returned, the vehicle was gone. The alert came not from law enforcement, but from an old mirror server, still running at a decommissioned logistics substation in Nevada. It wasn't even supposed to be online, but someone had rerouted it weeks earlier. Someone who knew how the audit logs used to work, before they were made more efficient and more blind. The alert read, Route ID CR4 EXT triggered. Manifest discrepancy. Tracking device silence threshold exceeded. Potential anomaly. That would have meant nothing to the current handlers, but it meant everything to Martin Greaves. Greaves was awake when the alert hit. He hadn't slept since the first M, Solis' signature had surfaced. Not because he was afraid, but because his gut knew this wasn't over. He sat in his dark apartment, surrounded by dusty binders and 2 functioning servers that hadn't been updated in a decade. He opened the log, saw the code, saw the route, paused, then whispered, "Who gave CR for a route again?" He traced the anomaly, followed the shadow path, using backdoor credentials he wasn't supposed to have anymore. It took him to a data locker, locked, but not against him. The file decrypted slowly. Inside, delivery logs blank, manifest line empty, 1 image, a photo taken from inside the cargo bay, spray paint, black, thick, slashed across a metal wall. Ghost! He exhaled sharply, leaned back, closed his eyes. He remembered that word. It had been used in internal designations for unaffiliated agents who refused reassignment, men and women who disappeared from the system, but still operated in shadow. Unofficial, unseen. They called them ghosts because they couldn't be controlled, only detected after they moved. But it was never painted. It was whispered, written in logs, scrawled in margins, not declared like this. This was a signal. Round pushpin 10:45 a.m. Truck discovered, abandoned. California Highway Patrol reported a trailer parked outside an unused tunnel access near Barstow. Driver gone, cab intact, no cargo inside, no GPS unit, nothing but the word ghost and a faint smell of refrigerant and bleach. The incident was filed as a mechanical dropout and vandalism. The case was closed before it even opened, but the log entry remained, buried, unless someone knew where to look. Round pushpin back in San Diego, 3:12 p.m., Lena Morales stepped outside. To clear her head, the day had been uneventful. No cafeteria crisis, no new warnings, but her nerves hadn't settled. Since receiving that photo of Carrick, she'd felt watched, not in a paranoid way, in the way you feel when someone has already cleaned up a mess you didn't even know had started. As she approached the gate, she saw something taped to the far end, a plain envelope, no markings. She opened it. Inside, a glossy photo, the inside of a truck, the same word, ghost. On the back, 1 line handwritten. He stopped the first one. This one stopped itself. She stared at the words. It wasn't thank you, wasn't a warning. It was a message between people who no longer use radios, or protocols between those who operated without names. That night, Lena lit a candle, placed the photo beside the one of Carrick. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't trained. But she knew this much. Whoever these people are, they're not gone. They're listening. And someone out there was keeping count of which trucks moved, of which labels reappeared, and of which ghosts still walked the fence line. Before anyone else knew, there was something to protect. The counter. Every system has an index, but when the system turns against the people it trained, someone has to start writing a new one. He walked like someone who once walked with authority, and then forgot how. Gray hoodie, black jeans, no badge, no watch, but his eyes. They scanned. The man entered the library just before closing. No one noticed. That was the point. He didn't go for a book, didn't browse. He walked straight to the terminal in the far left corner. Remote Node 14, an old machine, too slow for casual users, unfiltered, unmonitored, but still connected to a low-access government directory. Once used for agricultural procurement, he inserted a card, not magnetic, optical. The system blinked. Code 9 access request. Identity tag E. Norwood. Status Kia 2014. The screen hesitated. Protocols clashed. The system recognized the ID, but it had been listed as inactive for 11 years. And yet here it was, live, warm, real. The cursor blinked. And then, access granted. He typed in one word, list. The screen responded, define parameters. He typed not active, not dead, unclaimed, unseen, watching. Add label, ghost/unsettled. This man, Elliot Norwood, had once been part of an early surveillance reform task force. He was good at maps, patterns. He could see movement in silences. He could smell intention behind missing data. That's why he was erased, not physically, but professionally. They removed his clearance, stripped his reports, said he broke code. They didn't imprison him, just disconnected him, let him fade, let him rot. But he didn't rot. He watched, and now he was building something new, one line at a time, a new index, not for the government, not for security, but for truth. The first name, Carrick Thomas Flagg, reactive ghost/field protector. The second, M. Solis, alias reactivation/code interference detected. The third, he paused, typed slowly, Morales L. Civilian/awareness level, rising. Then he clicked a new tab, attached a file. Inside, a blurred satellite image of a delivery truck off-grid, an intercepted email sent but never delivered, a handwritten note scanned from a trash bin at Fort Benning. He labeled the folder, Echo 1, list begins, and whispered. They kept erasing. We just stopped forgetting. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, in an office where Martin Greaves once worked, an inactive log flickered online. Keyword detected. Ghost/unsettled. It wasn't triggered by government AI, not even by red flags, but someone watching that server, someone who had never left, opened their laptop at 2:03 a.m., typed the line, Elliot, is that you? No response, but the node remained active, because now the list wasn't theoretical. Now the ghosts had started counting, and whoever still thought they had the only database of survivors was wrong. The edge of the quiet war. Some men don't disappear. They just become background. They trade uniforms for shadows, badges for instinct, and their name for silence. He woke up before the light came, as he always did. No alarm, no motion, just breath. Inhale, exhale, once, twice. Then quietly he sat up. The blanket was old, frayed at the edges, military green turned gray. He folded it precisely, corner to corner, twice again. He didn't know why he still did it that way. It had no purpose now, no regulation, but his hands remembered, even when his mind did not. The alley behind the school was always empty at this hour. He walked it slowly, not because he was tired, but because he was scanning. Every step a choice, every sound a variable. He paused at the metal fence, rested one hand on the cold chain, listened. No wind, no insects, no trucks. Good. He settled into his usual spot, between the dumpster and the broken pipe. That dripped once every 6 seconds. He had counted, not because it mattered, but because it meant something was still consistent. And when the world forgets you, consistency becomes proof. You still exist. Across the yard, fluorescent lights began to flicker on. Inside the school, the janitor was early today. The sound of keys, a squeaky cartwheel. He waited, watched, not for anything in particular, just watched, because watching had once meant survival, and now it meant something else, a final purpose, when the system no longer assigns you one. Once, a long time ago, his name had been Thomas Carrick. He'd held a rifle, a badge, and a clearance level most people didn't know existed. But over time, he gave those things away. Some willingly, some under pressure, some just faded like scars beneath winter coats. But one thing never faded, the knowledge that if something ever went wrong, if someone slipped a lie past the chain of command, if a threat ever returned, he wouldn't need orders. He'd just need a reason. And yesterday, he found one. Round Pushpin March 11, 2:13 a.m. A shipment had arrived at the school kitchen. Unusual brand, new delivery driver, wrong side of the loading dock. He had noticed, not the cargo. The label, one word, Harveston. The name meant nothing, but the font did. Courier knew, all capital, soft gray print, barely visible against the plastic wrap, and the lock code, CR4X21. His eyes had paused. His pulse had not. He waited until the delivery was complete, watched where the boxes were stored, memorized which door wasn't locked. Then, just before sunrise, he entered the building the same way he had months ago, through the broken vent shaft no one had bothered to repair. Inside the dry storage room, he removed a single slip of paper from the manifest folder. On it, he wrote 2 lines. Wrong label. Send back. He signed it with a name that came from nowhere. Solis. Then he left. The shipment was returned that afternoon. No one asked why. Round pushbin March 12th, present. Now he sat, behind the fence, back straight, eyes alert, motionless, but not idle. His mind wandered, not in stories, not in memories, in sensation. The way the cold air carried distant metal. The way one student always ran 10 seconds ahead of the bell. The way the same crow landed on the corner of the roof at 6:09. These weren't facts. They were anchors. The world had erased his name, but he had memorized the world. And the war had never really ended. It had just gone quiet. And men like Carrick, trained to hear things others couldn't, knew how dangerous quiet could be. Round pushbin 6:17 a.m. A small boy arrived early, backpack crooked, hair wet, breathing fast. He looked at the man behind the fence, paused, lifted a hand, waved. Carrick didn't wave back, but he nodded, slight, precise. Enough. The boy smiled, ran off toward the doors. He would never know what almost entered his school the day before. He would never know who stopped it. That was how Carrick wanted it. The quiet war wasn't about medals. It was about interruption without intrusion, presence without presence. In a town 600 miles away, a new name was added to a hidden index. Not a government one, not digital, just a piece of paper. In a drawer beneath a flickering desk lamp, it read, unidentified male. Fence line consistency / label interception confirmed. Alias, none. But we call him the man who slept near the school. Candle, end of season 1. Clapperboard Silent Stories presents the man who slept near the school. Not all heroes return. Some stay behind to guard the next morning. From the shadows no one else sees,